railway station standing as a colonial palace for transportation. A landmark hotel preserving a piece of Britain's bygone empire. And a street where the first college of Western education in India still stands. They are all here in Kolkata, the crown jewel of the British Raj.
I'm Jason Pomeroy, an eco-architect and urban planner, and I'm passionate about great cities. I'm travelling to a series of great cities and finding out how old and modern architecture give each city its special character.
British traders arrived in Kolkata in the 1600s. Representatives of the East India Company came mainly for trade, but in time assumed sovereignty over the subcontinent. The British ruled India for more than 300 years. Kolkata in West Bengal became the capital of British India from 1772 to 1911. And present-day Kolkata is proud to be called the cultural capital of India.
I've arrived in Calcutta and already it's a bit of an assault on the senses, and I can see some of the landmarks that I'm so familiar with. For instance, the Howrah Bridge, and I can feel the sense of hustle and bustle of this ancient capital already. This is certainly going to be a very interesting exploration for me because I've always had such a love affair for India, and in particular there is a period in time of the British Raj. That legacy is what I want to explore in this city. Have they learnt lessons from the past? Have they adapted? And can we see those examples today?
With a reputation as the country's curator of colonial architecture, Kolkata presents reminders of British rule at every turn. The Indian railway system was a British contribution that has become an integral part of travel across the subcontinent till this day. This is the iconic Howrah Station, one of India's oldest railway stations.
I think the noise and the throng of people is quite overwhelming. But what I find truly amazing about this place is that we've got to bear in mind that during the days of the Raj, there were 2,000 British Indian civil service workers who actually administered over 300 million people across the subcontinent. Now, how do you do that? The way that you do that is by thinking about an extensive railway network, and Howrah Station is one of those particular landmarks. This palace to transport, this red brick edifice, is really quite outstanding.
This 1905 transportation palace was the creation of London architect Halsey Ralph Ricardo. Its Romanesque style alludes to medieval Europe. Clearly, the British Raj had invested a considerable sum to erect a structure of this magnitude to demonstrate their political might in the subcontinent.
This, even today, is quite a striking building, but in its time, in its heyday, this would have been really awe-inspiring for the local. But for the British Raj, it was a symbol of modernity, technological ingenuity with its very vast rail network, and certainly a symbol of power, prestige, and opulence.
Howrah Station is one of 4 intercity rail stations serving Kolkata. In 1854, the first train chugged out from the station's single platform. Today, with 23 platforms, Howrah handles more trains than any other station in India. Human traffic congestion is a constant. But in this frenetic hive of activity, a familiar fixture has served as lodestar for those overwhelmed by the moving masses. This is the prominent Oberoi, or Big Clock, of Howrah Station. It is the most popular rendezvous point since 1926, and I am meeting Jay Singh, a native of Kolkata here.
Now tell me, I heard a rumour that this clock actually stopped. Is that true?
Yeah, in 2010 it was out of order. The railway management put this in order.
Okay.
And today we find it's running.
So we can synchronise our watches, and yes, it is telling the right time now.
This is an electronic age, but this is almost 100 years old clock.
This is the final stopping point, if I'm not mistaken, for the railway system. Is that correct?
Yeah, and you'll find the heights of this railway station on the platforms and the structures of these buildings. These are all historical. If you stay in these structures, you won't feel hot even in summers.
It's remarkable, yeah. There's no air conditioning.
Yeah, no
and
air
it's
conditioning.
actually natural light. And I just love the sort of the vaulted roofs with the sort of the wrought iron. It talks a bit about the British legacy of bringing industrial materials here to create the rail network.
As one of India's biggest railway complexes today, and perhaps the nation's busiest passenger hub, Howrah Station has earned the title Gateway to Kolkata. The chaos and cacophony certainly adds character to this hectic hub of arrivals and departures.
The British Raj effectively left a long-lasting legacy in the transport system. This steel framework allowed not only Indian civil service workers to administer over 300 million people, but it allowed trade and commerce and motion throughout the subcontinent. Yeah, we take it for granted today. We can jump on a plane at any time to actually go overseas. But actually, this form of transport still serves 13 million people per day. So really, it's not just about transport. It is the legacy of the British infrastructure that they laid down here. And really, the Howrah Bridge is another great example.
After the break, I examine an iconic cantilever up close and visit the playground of the British in colonial Kolkata. Linking the station to Kolkata is the Howrah Bridge, one of the world's longest cantilevers. It carries 100,000 vehicles and as many as 150,000 pedestrians a day. 26,500 tons of steel lend resilience that lets the span weather storms raging through the Bay of Bengal.
This is Howrah Bridge, and this dates to 1943 when it was actually constructed to link Howrah and Calcutta. It is actually one of the main thoroughfares, and it's the third longest cantilevered bridge in the world. It really is quite a remarkable structure because it's 705 metres long, which is equivalent to lining up 10 jumbo jets, nose to tail.
Howrah Bridge was seen as a farewell gift from the British to the people of Kolkata. It was the final major infrastructure built by the colonial masters before India gained independence in 1947.
This structure is really the height of technological ingenuity. You have these wonderful trusses that are kind of zigzagging across the road. And what this effectively does, it gives us ample width to be able to provide 4 lanes of traffic and then a pedestrian thoroughfare either side for basically trade and commerce and workers to flow backwards and forwards all day long. This gets incredibly chock-a-block during the day, and I guess it's slightly quieter now because of the pouring rain.
In 1965, Howrah Bridge was renamed Rabindra Setu, meaning Rabindra's Bridge, after the great Bengali poet Rabindranath Tagore. Kolkata experienced a period of prosperity as the capital of British India. As the wealthiest region of its time, Bengal attracted the East India Company when Britain began casting its trading net towards India. Kolkata naturally became its capital when the British ruled the subcontinent. The City of Joy still glitters with traces of colonial days, and the Oberoi Grand Hotel reigns at Kolkata's heart as a symbol of opulence. The hotel's lavish neoclassical style certainly drew British residents like bees to honey.
Now, this is a welcoming sight. And I think if you're a homesick British colonial who had actually been months at sea and arriving here for the first time, or as a regular guest, this would almost be a slice of home.
The hotel was once the private residence of Colonel Grand in the early 1800s, whose name incidentally describes the hotel's grandeur.
Look at this as well. I mean, this wonderful domed ceiling characterized by a wonderful crystal chandelier. This is a very, very lofty volume that has a wonderful viewing gallery from above. I'm assuming maybe associated with a ballroom so that people entertaining could actually look back down here to see who's arriving. This is basically a meeting place for the British colonial.
In the 1930s, hotelier Mohan Singh Oberoi bought what was then the Grand Hotel and added his name to its name. With only 2 hotels in the city at the time, the Oberoi Grand easily became the playground of the upper echelons.
Tell me a bit about the history.
So, the Grand Dame of the East, that's what it's called. It was built in 1890 by Aratun Stephen, a young Armenian who arrived into Calcutta then.
Oh, that's wonderful. I mean, the Armenians have a heritage in hospitality. We see them in the Saki brothers, in Peninsula, Eastern Oriental, the Raffles, and also in Kolkata. But what I really want to know is what would it have been like for a British colonial who would be homesick? How would they have been entertained?
Well, plenty of options. So let me take you to all the right places.
That's perfect.
Please.
Thank you.
At the Oberoi Grand, one can still taste bygone luxury originally arranged for Britons yearning for homeland comforts.
What sort of things would have taken place here?
Plenty.
I can imagine.
You know, if you go back into the time of the British Empire, in the city there were just 2 hotels. And given its grandeur, when you look at the ballroom and its sheer size, so all the various large gatherings, whether it was weddings,
Yes.
annual general meetings of the then companies,
Yes.
ballets, cabarets, and talking about music, the story of jazz in India started from Kolkata.
That's remarkable. Now, I heard that there was a rather interesting story relating to piglets in this place. What is that about?
This was the much looked forward to New Year Eve party that would happen in this ballroom. And a part of the function was that they would release 12 piglets.
Wow.
And mind you, whoever caught one would get to keep one.
During World War II, the hotel continued to flourish. About 4,000 British soldiers were put up here, and they would party regularly. Today, guests can relive Kolkata's imperial heyday in this heritage hotel.
You know, it's not hard to imagine that this place would have been filled with dignitaries and senators and very important individuals, part of the British colonial administration. But what I also find enjoyable is this little pocket garden that lies in the middle of the hotel. I could imagine that once upon a time, finely dressed memsahbs or ladies who lunch would have been out here enjoying tiffin or afternoon tea. That also is a British legacy that has been left behind, because today this hotel still wonderfully functions as a place of meeting and greeting, not only for dignitaries but also for the international traveller.
When we return, I seek out reminders of British influence in the intellectual hub of Kolkata. Kolkata is a time capsule of colonial culture. This city was once the administrative headquarters of the British Raj and has elements of its colonial past deeply ingrained in many aspects of daily life. College Street in central Kolkata is an excellent example. This street derived its name from the presence of many colleges here. And Presidency University is one of its most significant landmarks. Established in 1817, it is one of South Asia's oldest Western-style institutions of higher learning. I am eager to find out the role that this institution has played in propagating Britain's educational legacy. For that, I'm meeting Professor Rai Chowdhury, Dean of Presidency University.
please tell me a bit about the history of this place.
A lot of colleges were first started inside this institution. For example, the first engineering college, the first medical college, the first institutes of mathematics and statistics and earth sciences were all started here, and then they had lives of their own outside. And then slowly towards the end of the 19th century, the research laboratories started here as well. The first physics laboratory in India, the first chemistry laboratory in India, all of that started here.
Education was an effective tool for spreading the values of the colonial masters. At Presidency University, the British education system had provided a solid foundation for what has been Bengal's preeminent tertiary institution for almost 150 years.
So, Prof. Rai Chowdhury, within these walls, what changes have we seen to the British education system over the years?
Well, in the beginning, it all started with the classical subjects, liberal arts. It was used to educate the future bureaucrats and the diplomats of the country. So it'll be literature, some of the Indian languages, and things like history and the classics.
The alumni of the college have distinguished themselves both nationally and internationally in various fields. One notable name is the eminent scientist, Jagadish Chandra Bose, who was responsible for the first ever generation of microwaves in a laboratory along one of these corridors.
Bose's famous students were people like Saha and S.N. Bose. They together, while they were students of J.C. Bose, were the first people who had translated Einstein's paper on general relativity 1915. Two Bengali students in Presidency College got Einstein's paper first, understood its significance, translated it to English, and that then spread over the English-speaking world. So you can see that, Presidency was already acting as a conduit for information and of research, of new knowledge, creating new knowledge, in the British colonies.
In 1870, a plan was submitted for the construction of a building on the premises where the university is now located. The new building was inaugurated in 1874 in the presence of His Excellency, the Viceroy of India. There were unmistakably Victorian references in the architecture.
Do you know what? I'm really not sure what I was going to be expecting from this venerated academic institution, but what I do know is that it feels like it's been caught in a time warp. We have examples of that technological ingenuity of the industrial era with the wrought iron beams and the wrought iron staircases. We have exposed stone flag floors and also these roughly rendered walls. But what an interesting experience, because this really does give me a flavour of how students were educated during the British Raj.
With its rich heritage and academic excellence, Presidency University remains a coveted destination for scholars from all over the Indian subcontinent and beyond. Just across the street from Presidency University stands an important College Street fixture, the Indian Coffee House. Also known as College Street Coffee House, it has played a vital role in Kolkata's cultural history as the hub of intellectual and political debate. Notable locals like Tagore and S.C. Bose were frequent visitors to the place.
With so many academic institutions like Calcutta University, the Sanskrit School, Presidency College sitting cheek by jowl next to each other along College Street, you better have some very good infrastructure in order to be able to allow the intelligentsia to communicate. The coffee shop has always historically been such a meeting place, and here in the Indian Coffee House, it did just that job.
When Western education came to Kolkata, it changed the cultural and intellectual landscape of the city. The British needed bureaucrats to help govern this massive country, so they trained native Indians to become civil administrators. This created an intellectual elite that had an immense impact on the city's culture. The atmosphere on College Street is a wonderful hybrid of gritty Indian street culture and British scholastic influence. Nothing says this better than the jumble of bookstores. First editions, pamphlets, paperbacks in every one of India's many languages, foreign titles in and out of print. This second-hand book market is not only the world's largest, but also a treasure trove of genuine rarities.
You know, when I was a student at Cambridge, I would spend many hours in bookshops, but nothing can actually prepare you for something like this. I mean, College Street is literally lined with bookshops, and here is a wonderful example that dates to 1886, and it has all the hallmark features. We've got the wrought iron staircases, the exposed beams, but even despite all the antiquated bookshelves, we do get a lot of modern literature. I mean, I can see Dan Brown's Da Vinci Code, but my personal favourite as an architect is Ayn Rand's The Fountainhead. Tell me a bit more about this place.
My great-grandfather started in the year 1886.
Wow.
At that time, only on College Street, only 30 to 40 bookshops were there. Now, I think more than 10,000 bookshops are in College Street.
That is remarkable.
So we have witnessed 2 world wars, the First and Second World War.
Today, the British come as tourists, not overlords. But their influence is indelible, not only in the bricks and mortar, but in different aspects of Kolkatan life.
You know, it feels like almost a perfect setting to be finishing at the Victoria Memorial, this remarkable gleaming white edifice created out of marble at the time of one of the most flamboyant viceroys, Lord Curzon. It's a fitting tribute to the opulence and dynamism and also the confidence of the British Raj. What we need to bear in mind is that this goes beyond economic exploitation of the East India Company. This was the time of the British Raj that sought to try and create a steel framework around India. And that for me is quite remarkable. They were able to do that through the railway system, through centralised administration and through an advanced educational system that would create future leaders and also dignitaries and also political figures. While I may have found a British legacy in India, it does actually leave me with a burning question. What about those civil servants who eventually went back to Great Britain? We can talk about a British legacy in India, but did they not have stories to tell back home? Perhaps we should also consider not just the British legacy in India, but the Indian legacy in Great Britain.